that there's a concern that maybe maybe a lot of people nowadays just don't even want to work or have less motivation. I know there's this whole internet movement of the anti-work movement or stuff like that. Do you think that that's a legitimate concern, or do you think it is like maybe a lack of either maybe it's compensation on different industries' side? So the compensation study will maybe help us know if there's some issues on our end on making sure people are compensated fairly, and maybe that's the reason there's this mass exodus in the workforce, or is it like a lack of morale or something in just individuals?
Yeah, that is a great
That's a
question.
complicated question to throw at the end.
Yeah, it's okay. It's complicated, and I
Yeah.
obviously don't have a great answer. The first thing that came to mind, though, Hannah, is as a general rule, we as humans want to be inspired
Yeah.
in our work. We want to be inspired. And I think there's not enough of that understanding in leadership of companies, even middle management, that a sales manager that's watching or listening to this, your people want to be inspired, and that's on you as a leader to inspire them. That's not on them. Now some people are just not going to want to work. I mean, we saw that all the way back in the founding of our country.
Yep.
Where that's why some of the early colonies were like, hey, you don't eat. If you don't work, you don't eat, kind of thing. Cause they're trying to figure that out. But so that's a thing that's happened for all of human history, more than likely, people not wanting to work. I agree with you. It seems to be more of a trend these days.
Right.
So the only solution I would have for that is be inspiring. If you're having a hard time getting people or keeping people in your company or on your team, think differently about how you're inspired. People want to be inspired, and so how are you inspiring them? And no, saying to them, what's your number, and telling them it's not good enough every month, that's not inspiring.
Right.
One of the things that I would always share, especially in the security industry with my teams, is what we do echoes in eternity. Meaning, and one of the ways I would say that is really challenge people. Hey, when we ask you to, in sales especially, to make that extra call, sometimes that extra call gets you in front of somebody who has a very specific need that you can meet. And the sooner that you meet that, the harder that target of their facility becomes. And perhaps you avert something really bad happening in that facility because you made that one more call. Because what we do in the security industry truly echoes in eternity. And so that it was a way to, my way of both inspiring, but then also sobering people to this realization that, hey, it's not janitorial supplies that we're selling here. And if it was, we'd be the best on the planet selling janitorial supplies. Okay. And no offense to anyone who sells janitorial supplies, very, very important.
Yes.
But I would draw the distinction between, hey, janitorial supplies is great, but providing security that may avert a catastrophe, that echoes for well beyond our lifetimes.
Right.
And allows people to come home to their families and children to come home to their families potentially where otherwise they wouldn't, because you were there. And so that level of inspiration and finding that and tapping into that, I think, will draw people, because people want to work. And, I believe God's put in our heart to work. But if you're not inspired, and it's easy, we've made it easy, at least in our society here the last couple of years, not to work, frankly, for some people not to work.
Right.
So connecting that inspiration piece, I think, is really important.